next 10 days visiting Lyndon's family, so I thought what better time to catch up on my October TBR than now. And these are the books I brought. I already began You Between the Lines at home, and then I read a little bit on the plane. I'm on chapter 7, and what's so funny is this book actually takes place in North Carolina. I love when that happens. I didn't anticipate lining that up, but I'm so glad that it did because it also takes place in the fall. Perfect. I also have my Kindle in case any of these books don't end up speaking to me. This is scary territory for me. This is my first fantasy book that I'll ever read, and I'm pretty sure this is fantasy/sci-fi. Both and all the books that I'm reading this month are picked by my best friend Haley, so she took me out of my comfort zone, gave me some new genres. Maybe this is weird, but I decided to bring the fantasy book because I don't know if I'm gonna like this genre, and I don't want to ruin my reading experience by reading fantasy at home if I don't like it. Like, I'd rather associate it to a different place than my home and my reading room. Is that silly? Maybe. But the lineup is to finish You Between the Lines ASAP. I also have it on audiobook, so I'll probably go on a walk and listen, maybe tandem read the physical book and the audiobook, and then get into these as well. This one takes place in the mountains of North Carolina, so I definitely want to read this when we're in the mountains. Specifically, we will be in the Blue Ridge Mountains. This is a small town set in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Perfect. Let's read. We made it to the mountains. It's actually perfect here. I'm so glad that I'm brunette. It just feels right to be brunette in the fall. That sounds like a random thought, but I think I'm just still getting used to how dark my hair is, but being in the mountains makes it make sense to me. This is how you know I am from LA. We get on the properties, and one of the people that was kind of showing us around was explaining the leaves, you know, the colors of the leaves right now. They're turning red. That's just happened in the last few days, they said. And I straight up asked, like, you're telling me that the leaves that are currently red were once green? Because they're still green leaves. Like, those exact green leaves are now the red ones. And she was like, yeah, it's like so nice. Clearly knew I was not from these neck of the woods. And it's just so fun. Seasons are so fun, and the one part of living in California that I wish we had more of. But this fall is just hitting every single thing off of my bucket list, which included a trip to the mountains. And I thought that would be in California, and I'm so happy that it got to be in North Carolina where the leaves actually change. I will show you in a second. This has been the ultimate bookish week for me. I finished You Between the Lines, which is crazy because it takes place in North Carolina, and they take a weekend trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is where we are in that book. That was the book I read right before coming here. I just love when that happens. Haley chose every book that I would read this month, and 2 of the books she picked for me to read, which I only brought 3 physical books, and then I have my Kindle on this trip. I'm on to the second book, but 2 out of 3 of those books take place in North Carolina, and then more specifically in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is where we are, which is just weird. Like, is that a coincidence? Yes, but how weird is that? Let me show you my book stack. Here it is. I just finished this book. A tiny, like, 2 chapters take place in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then here I am picturing it, and it happens in the fall. I just love when the location and setting and season of a book is the same as my current reality. In this book, you follow Lee, who just joined a prestigious MFA program, and she loves poetry. She loves writing poetry from the POV of famous pop stars like Taylor Swift, One Direction, and she took a writing class in high school where a boy that she had a crush on basically said that she had no substance in her writing, and that boy ends up also being in this prestigious program, so they meet again. And after a couple incidents that occurred over their timeline from high school to now, and then having to basically compete for the dream fellowship that Lee wants and working together in the writing center, she kind of makes it her goal to avoid him as much as possible. Clearly that doesn't really work. Personally, I was expecting so much more from this because on paper, everything that it's about is way up my alley, especially with there being poetry and a MFA program. Like, all of those things I love so much. I studied English in college until I switched my major 6 times. In theory, this would have been the perfect book for me, but it just didn't play out. I didn't really love our main character. I felt like she found other people insufferable, but I found her insufferable. I feel like she was self-sabotaging a lot, and I just did not connect. It's crazy to go from a hard read to a super, super engaging read because it makes you realize how much a hard read is a hard read. She was good, but she wasn't great. Moving on. I picked this up yesterday and I'm literally halfway done. That is how good, guys. I need to tell you something I don't think I've ever chosen to do before. I decided to eat dinner while reading this book. I never read and eat because I'd rather watch YouTube or something else. I was so engaged in this story that I forsook YouTube to read. I fell asleep reading this today because we woke up at 5:50 to start our drive here, which was around 3 a.m. my time, so I was very exhausted all throughout the day. So I went in and out of taking naps, but I'm on page 150, I think? No. Oh no, I'm like way up. I'm on chapter 30, so I think this is about halfway through with the book. For being my first fantasy, I'm honestly shocked at how much I'm eating it up. Again, I don't read fantasy, so I guess I wouldn't know. This feels like really light fantasy in comparison to like world building and goblins and I don't know what else is in fantasy books, but this feels very light. It's very the real world with magical elements. Also, as a Christian, I feel like I can take away Christian ideas and elements or biblical perspectives from this book and from like the evil that happens in this book, and it makes me wonder if the author is Christian. I'm loving it. I'll tell you about it later once I'm done reading it because I don't even know how I'm going to explain a fantasy book that feels like a different world than romance, which it is. Just gonna spend some time reading, getting photos, because this is literally my Pinterest board dream location, and hanging out with Lyndon's family. Don't mind my hair, I lost the other hair tie. So I think I just need to take it out at this point. Oh, it kind of got really wavy from that. My hair looks so good now. Guys, this book, I feel like I'm starting to clock and understand fantasy. I'm almost done, so my plan right now is to take you guys along with me, look at the leaves changing colors, drink a coffee, because the property we're staying on has 24/7 drinks. Any coffee, any matcha, anything you can whip up. They do house-made syrups, and there's every type of syrup. Yesterday I had a house latte that they do with hazelnut and caramel, then a lavender matcha, also incredible. This morning I had a snickerdoodle cappuccino, and it was like white chocolate with cinnamon, incredible. And right now I'm kind of craving like an iced cappuccino. I'm not used to eating this much refined sugar in beverage form or in sweets form because they give Sweet Treat like all hours of the day, but everything's made here, and you gotta live a little, and I've decided my autoimmune has to stay at bay so that I can enjoy cinnamon rolls in the morning. Back to the book. I'm on chapter 44, so I have this much left. Literally gonna take maybe an hour. I am so sad that I'm finishing this book because I actually have enjoyed it so much. I feel like in the new year, I've decided that I'm going to include this in a video. I don't know what the video will be, but my explanation of my 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, like my tier rankings for stars for books, because I feel like I am almost too generous and I just feel bad giving a book a lower rating, even though, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but because of TikTok and YouTube, it feels like if you gave a book a 3-star, that's like so horrible and you hated it, and that's just not true. A 3-star could still mean it was great, it just wasn't the best book you've ever read. And I feel like I've been having so many 4 stars recently because I don't want to dip very low. I say all this and I just gave you Between the Lines like a 2.5. My reason for saying this is because I want to explore my tier rankings and what they actually mean in order to give more correct feedback on the books that I'm reading and my own thoughts. Like, this is all my POV on these books, so I feel like I've been having so many 4 stars because I don't really know what a 3-star means to me right now. So 2026 tier ranking will be revised. Let's change because I am still in my comfy cozies and get coffee and read. The difference between Lyndon and I on a mountain trip: me reading, him sending me videos of cows pooping. Also, side plot, I feel like I've fallen off my Instagram game. I used to be obsessed with taking photos, not in an annoying way, but it was just something that I really enjoyed, like capturing a moment how it actually was, and candids and photo dumps, and I just feel like I've fallen off the wagon of that. I don't know if maybe buying a digital camera would revive that in me, but I've been trying to take more photos on this trip because I really miss being like active on Instagram that way. So I went on Pinterest, I got inspo for photo ideas, and Lyndon has been cooking. Let me show you guys some from this morning. Follow me on Instagram because I'm gonna start popping off over there, okay? That's all I have. I just finished Alchemy of Secrets. I feel so lost right now. I feel kind of annoyed at the ending, I'm not gonna lie. Let me just start at the beginning. You follow Holland St. James, who's a graduate student in Los Angeles, and she's currently taking a class called Folklore 517. And to even go to class, the class slowly diminishes every week, student by student, because you have to figure out where the class is meeting. It could be in the haunted Roosevelt Hotel or in the Hollywood graveyard, and the class is all about local myths and legends. Holland is on a date with a boy, and on this date she figures out the clue for the Watchman, who's a local legend that if you ask him when you're gonna die, he'll tell you the day and time and that. She finds him, she asks him, she finds out she is going to die the next day, which is Halloween, at 11:59 p.m. Crazy high stakes. In order to not die, she has to find the alchemical heart. May I just give my kudos to fantasy readers that explain fantasy plots and books to people online, because this is not even like a high, crazy fantasy world building type of book, and I don't even know how to talk about it. And I read it in 2 days. Like you would think it's all fresh in my mind. It's just like such a different vibe than a romance novel or a literary fiction. You really don't know who to trust. Holland is very trusting of people too quickly, and you become trusting of them too, because then you're thinking like, oh, if Holland likes them and that's maybe her love interest, I'm gonna like them too. Then you just don't know who to believe at any given moment. Holland meets a stranger who promises her that her sister, her twin sister January, sent him to protect Holland, and everyone's just always lying to her. There's this whole magical world within Los Angeles that only appears if you have certain keys or if you have certain ways to access the world. And Holland's just on this giant treasure hunt. It's not crazy world building, nor is it very heavily driven by the character. The part of the book that is so keeps you on your toes is the plot. You are turning the page because this plot is so rich. I felt like the plot kept digging deeper and deeper, and then when you think you know what's going on, it's not what's going on, and I definitely got bamboozled. So I love that. I'm unsatisfied by the ending, and I'm sure that's probably normal for books that have multiple books in the series. This is the first one. I don't read series, so I don't know if that's the norm, but I feel like one thing, I will not spoil it, but the one thing that bothered me from the beginning, or from like 50 pages in to the end of the book, is someone she's not getting in contact with. The entire time I'm reading, I'm like, how are you okay that you're not in contact with this person? That was really annoying me, to be honest. I think I'm going to give this a 4.25 because I really enjoyed the writing a bunch. I was locked in. That is how you know I am enjoying a book, is if I can lock in, not scroll on my phone, not do anything else. I actually want to read, and that's how I felt about this book. So I loved the writing. I loved that it took place in fall. The fall vibes were high. I'm kind of confused by the cover, honestly. There we have it, guys. My first fantasy book ever. I feel like the next fantasy that I potentially will give a go to is either the Powerless series or Throne of Glass. Game of Thrones? Throne of Glass series. Because I bought all of those and they look so pretty on my shelf and I'm very intrigued by them. But moving on to book number 3 for our cozy mountain trip. I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna go grab it. The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I don't know what's happening in this book. I don't even know what genre this is, but it takes place in a small mountain town in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I'm in a small mountain town in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it feels like the perfect setting. I feel like we should just hop into it. Lyndon's on like a 3-hour hike. I was not gonna dabble in that. So let's start reading. We made it back to Charlotte from the mountains and oh my gosh, I am so deep in this story now. I think I'm like 65% through. We had a 3-hour road trip back to Lyndon's parents' house and I read the entire time. This book is so good. I'm like genuinely sad that I have only this much left to go because the storytelling, the timelines, everything is incredible. I cannot wait to explain this to you once I'm done reading it. 0 to 20%, I was like, this is gonna be a 3-star. Like there's nothing like really tugging at my heart here. Other than the writing, the prose itself is very beautifully written. Aside from that, I just did not think this book was for me. And then something broke off a quarter of the way in, and from 25% on, I have been so locked in and I feel the feeling of a 5-star. So I'm just going to read and hopefully finish this today. I just read Alchemy of Secrets, which is written in 3rd person. So I just prefer non-3rd person. I prefer a 1st person POV and I love having that in this book so much. It sometimes gets frustrating because you want to know what the other characters are thinking and doing and why they aren't telling our main character June things, but I know it'll all unravel eventually. That's why you have to keep reading because there's so much on this, there's so much at stake and you need to know what's happening. It's so good, guys. Let's just read. Okay, the sun's low-key hitting me perfect right now. We're obviously back home, back in the reading room from North Carolina, and I totally forgot to end this video and share my thoughts on this book. If I could just give you one face to describe my feelings towards this book, it would be oh my gosh, this book was so good. You follow a woman in her 30s. Her name is June Farrow, and her grandmother just passes away. So June is the last living Farrow women. The Farrow women have essentially a curse where every single one of them goes mad. They start hallucinating, they start seeing things that aren't there, and the whole town of Jasper, North Carolina, really tiny mountain town, knows about this. So June for the last year has started to have these hallucinations. She sometimes sees a man, she sometimes sees a red red door. It's very confusing for her. She obviously knows what's going on because all of the past women in her generations and in her life this has happened to. She has a moment where a close family friend tells her the next time she sees the red door to walk through it. So she does. I do not even know how to explain this book without giving you spoilers, so I'm really gonna very vaguely explain it. This is literary fiction. It's a thriller. It's sci-fi. There's romance. There's time traveling. It is absolutely phenomenal. The storytelling was pristine. The writing was so descriptive, and sometimes that can be boring, but that was just not the case with this book at all. Up until page 100, I was apprehensive because I don't do spooky vibes, okay? I don't read spooky books, and it was giving spooky. I was like, why are you hallucinating? What are you seeing? Why is there a man? And then past that point, you realize that it's not hallucinations, and then you just are locked in. And I started to feel those 5-star feeling vibes. I was very excited about feeling those things because you guys know what it's like to read a book that you feel is a 5-star. The parts of the book that hinder me from giving it 5 stars are that parts of it take place in the year of 2023, but they do not feel like 2023 at all. It does not feel modern at all. I felt like I was reading a historical fiction, which, to be fair, most of it is kind of that vibe, but there's still a good chunk in 2023, and I'm like, I was not in 2023. I was in 19 something. So that was difficult. And then the web of generations and how they time traveled, and then how a future version of themselves could have gone back in time, and then a current, present, younger version of themselves didn't know what future them did, but they did things in the past. That was so confusing, and I'm still confused by it, and I almost wanted to make a map to try to map it out, but I feel like there could have been a little bit better explanation, or maybe even more dialogue between characters that were experiencing those time traveling vibes. The romance, unexpectedly beautiful. There were a couple contenders for the romance, and I really loved how it played out. I do wish there was more scenes of the two characters who initially fell in love, getting to see more of them in a way. I give this a 4.5. Highly recommend you read it. I had such a great time reading this book, and I was in the mountains that this book fictionally takes place in, so great vibes all around. To give you a sneak peek into the next reading diaries, I am hosting my first ever book club in person with some of my friends. I'm so excited, and I'm going to read the book club book and then bring you guys along the process of decorating the apartment, getting treats, making coffees, and just vlogging the actual book club. So it's gonna be cozy, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be fall. I love you, reading rats. Comment down below a book that's on your November TBR, because I need to start figuring out what I'm gonna read this coming month.